First off, I want to explain that if this video didn't get put on launch day, then blame YouTube for genuinely expecting I'd pay for their premium just to download my stream.
You serious?
In other news, I'm streaming on Twitch. Take a wild guess. Anyways, welcome to my little tips and tricks to soloing in Zenless. Look, I get it isn't ethical, but it's a twist I haven't seen before, and in terms of all Hoyoverse games, this one leaves the most room for it. But if you are the select few with a severe mental deficiency like me, then I got just what you need. Mostly. I did just start the game. I don't have all the tips and tricks to this. I'm still learning myself, to be blunt about it. Let's first talk about the characters you'll want to focus on, because I'm just going to put it out there, Nicole solo isn't going to make it out alive. And what better way to do it than a tier list? There's a lot better ways, but this gets views, alright? And so here it is. Okay, without context for Nico being S and no one else, this would be in the next video of worst tier lists, but trust me on this one. Let's start with S and go downwards to explain myself here, and note this is simply based off my opinion with some research on every character, so of course put some salt on this list. God knows you already have. When it comes to roles characters play, Nico is a sort of jack of all trades character, which is always a red flag in gaming due to her being decent in all aspects, but never great. However, in a solo scenario, this goes right out the window. When it comes to classes, the ones you want to use is stun or damage, with Anomaly being a slightly distant second. Ben being an exception to this rule, I'll explain later. She is both in a way, good damage and good stun, essentially being two roles in one, albeit poorly from a meta standpoint, but if you want meta, this video is not for you. But not only does she take two roles in one, but she also has a good perfect dodge attack that gives you a % increase to attack afterwards, fitting in as a substitute parry that you wouldn't get otherwise without her as your solo, as well as an extra 40 crit damage after defeating an enemy with your ultimate for a set time, where if you switch to a different character you wouldn't get. So essentially what puts her on top for me is her versatility in multiple areas where a solo needs to shine in. Now for A tier. I won't be as detailed in my analysis for the rest of the characters because one, I don't want to push this figure too long, as well as the fact that if you're interested in a certain character, you will have your knowledge on them yourself and just want to see where I put them. I'll still give some reasoning though, so don't worry. Anyways, Soldier 11. I give her second place for the fact that she excels in being greedy for your attention, dealing more damage in turn. Good for a solo. Actually, before we continue, I should explain why I put stun and damages first equally. It really just depends on whether you want a higher damage multiplier more consistently when getting staggers, or just flat high damage consistently without consistent high damage multipliers with staggers. Which one is better? I don't know exactly, so to be safe I'd say they're both good and leave it at that. Lycan, Ellen, and Zhu Yuan are all very efficient at dealing damage or stun, so they follow behind. Behind the trio is Billy and Ambi, both good at doing damage and or stun. Now Ben Bigger is behind them, but in other people's opinions they'd say he's S for his counterattacks and beefy damage, so I will say that's super valuable for a solo, as well as considering you're actively having to counter instead of parrying with a different character. I'm just not a fan of slower attacking characters, but if you rank them higher in this solo criteria, I do not blame you. Next is Wonton Anton, and a girl with a saw. Again, same as Ben, just not a fan of slower attacking characters when it comes to soloing, due to the fact you can't quickly switch them in and out for team combos. Next is Grace and Piper. When I tried doing research for Grace to give at least something for her, I got videos for team building, so that should about cover it. Under those two are Kalita. The problem with her in this category is the fact that her whole gimmick is that she piggybacks over Ben like Lilia in Honkai Impact, and she could have potential solo, but I don't see the point to play a character that was meant for a partner in the first place when it comes to solo play. Next is the last tier, also known as the support tier. Maybe they have more potential, but when it comes to Hoyo games, they don't like hybrid supports as much as I've tried to make them work. Potentially sub DPS, but again, for solo play that isn't viable here. That's it for the list of characters. Again, just my opinion, it can vary from person to person. Now onto what is going to be a necessity for a solo, especially for people who picked up a stun class instead of a damage class. Bang Boos will be your saving grace when it comes to lack of team combos when you stagger opponents. That being said, when you do unlock the ability to use Bang Boos, it'll be your top priority to get the best one that will synergize with your characters. First, let's go over the pros and cons of going solo before you genuinely decide to do it. First of all, the cons are no parrying, no team combos other than switching to your Bang Boo and back, and severe lack of buffs from other members as well as support buffs from abilities. The pros though is that your wallet will thank you. If you solo, you just need 2 characters, 1 for each team for the Abyss stuff, leaving room for pulling for S engines, as well as taking advantage of on-field buffs from your character if they have some, like my example from Nico Mia. That's all from me. If there's any other tips to help fellow solos, do comment. I'm trying to keep a every second day video pattern, so if you're interested on watching more content in the future, I have a Twitch. I'll put it in the description. Anyways, goodbye.